Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to talk about my ex was brainwashed to break up with me. Now, just to put a disclaimer out there, no one was brainwashed. It's a catchy word. But this is how some people feel when their partner, their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their husband or wife break up with them. And it's pretty clear that a friend, family member, or colleague got in their ear, got in their space, got in their head, and manipulated the situation. And someone might go, well, they did this. The stepdad did it. The best friend who's single and is living such a great life wants her to be single and live such a great life. Now, this is what I'm going to tell you. When you have a situation where your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife is influenced, and that's the best blanket term to call this, because it's not always manipulation, it can be influence. Because, if we had 100 people look at an individual breakup, right? And you say your case, and your ex says their case, and then everyone looks at it objectively. They're all going to have different opinions. Someone might say, oh, this is a manipulator, this is an influence. No, they really should have left you. The list goes on. Family members, friends, and colleagues who give their opinion about your relationship have a little bit of power, depending on where they're at in that person's head. They do. Now, here's the rub. Here's the tough part. You're not going to change that. Okay? You're not going to change the fact that someone's highly influenced by their parents, step-parents, uncles, aunts, grandma, grandpa, boss, best friend, the best friend who's a wreck. And from the outside, you're like, I don't want you acting like that girl. You can't get in that space in between that. It's a very difficult spot to be in. And it's come up a lot in the years I've been a breakup coach. It's come up a lot in different scenarios, different interpretations. But I did have a story that was sent in to me, and thank you for sending it in. It's a long story, but I like long stories that have details and relevant facts or relevant situations. So if you have a story you want to send in, go to writemac.com, WRITEMAC.com. And I could unpack it like I am in this video right now. I had a client a few years back, and it's similar to this story. And by the way, I didn't read this story completely because it was quite long. I like to read them fresh sometimes. It gives a different effect on the videos. But I got a good gist of it. This client I had a few years back was married for, I believe it was 15 or 16 years. Very good guy, hardworking. They didn't have kids together, but they had kids prior to. They raised the kids together. From all standpoints from him, they had a fantastic relationship. And from this guy's attitude and the way he conveyed himself and handled himself, I believed him. And he kind of had this she kind of had this tarnished relationship with her mom. But her mom lived on the East Coast and they lived on the West Coast. So the mom was far away. But he knew the mom was always kind of manipulative, complaining, negative, and had an effect on his wife. But being that she lived so far away, it didn't really touch them. But when the wife would get off the phone with the mom, or, there might be a family funeral where they have to connect, he could just sense, wow, the mom just really brings her down. So what happened was something happened with the mom. I think either her current husband or she had to move or she was running out of money. I don't remember the exact situation. But this guy's wife had to go out and visit her mom. And he wasn't invited, nor did he really want to go. He didn't think much of it, but the 2-week trip ended up being 3 weeks. And when the wife came back, she was completely different, standoffish, created all these fights, and within a month left him and moved in with her mom. And he was in shambles. He was shocked. He said, man, we had a great relationship. He just couldn't figure it out. The mom had her programmed. The mom still had her on a string as if she was a kid. And so when she was in her mom's presence 24/7 for 3 weeks, whatever message that mom was putting into her head, and I believe it was something like, I can't live alone, I need your help. But then she mixed in some negativities about her current husband. It's intricate. They ended up breaking up. This guy was beside himself. She never came back. So today I put it in the chat here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Things, if you say my ex was brainwashed to break up with me, or my ex was manipulated to break up with me by their family, friends, or colleagues. Those are all possibilities. I think family probably on a general basis, and I don't like generalizations, but I use them because I'm human. Family probably has the strongest influence, although good friends or bad friends also influence people depending on where they're at in life. But let's just go through this before I get to the story. Those of you that are on deck, thanks for the likes. Chris the Critic, Justin Brown, Innovative Entertainment, welcome. Noel. I'll get to your questions if you have questions after we get through the meat and potatoes of this thing. But this is a really good segment because if this hasn't happened to you, it's always a possibility in relationships with friends and family also. So let's go through this. And I understand manipulation and programming at a whole new level. I've been trained as a hypnotherapist and seeing the back end of how our psychology works. It's not that difficult for someone with the right words at the right time, in the right place, in the right position to manipulate someone into doing something that's completely out of character. So number one, write this down if you're wondering how your ex gets manipulated by friends, family, or colleagues, or how your current partner does. Number one, environments change behavior. Well, someone might go, and by the way, I think I might have spelled the word environment wrong. A quick one. Some people say, oh, I know that already. I know that. Yeah. Do you? Do you really? Do you really observe how your partner or how your now ex acts around different groups of people? And might I add, in different places? This is really interesting. And I just had a close friend of mine. We were talking, and she said when she's around her parents, and she's in her 60s, her husband, who she has a pretty good relationship with by what I can account for, says, I don't like the way you act when you're around your parents. And she doesn't even notice it. There's more negativity, there's more browbeating, and then that's projected onto their relationship because she's in a negative mood. So environments change behavior. Let's look at this in a positive way. Let's say you're a golfer. Full disclosure, I'm not a golfer at all. I don't really like playing golf. Done it 2 or 3 times, but stay with me. Let's say you're a golfer. You go golfing because You get outside, you get sun, you enjoy the game. You do it for positive reasons. So when you go to the golf course, I would hope you're going there to change your state, to change your program. Now, when you're around people in certain environments, you can be triggered. If you haven't been around your parents or whoever raised you in 5 years, 10 years, 6 years, it's been a while, but you grew up with them and you lived in the house till you were 18, 19, 20 years old, when you stay with them, some of those things that were second nature when you were a kid will come back. Right? Maybe your mother was a type of person that did the laundry or made your bed, was very accommodating and nurturing. When you come home, if you're 55 years old and she's 80, she's probably going to still have some of that in her, and you're probably going to be receptive to it. Now, on the flip side, let's say your mother was always protective of you and extremely possessive with where you go. That probably won't change either, and you'll become that little kid in that environment. So when you look at why has someone changed so suddenly, it's probably in a new environment that they're in or an old environment that they're in that's re-triggered who they were in that environment. Now, if it's a new environment, they're kind of swimming through it, trying to figure it out. But those are things that change behavior, environments. Some people have power over others' decisions. You usually can't change that. So a lot of times people say, oh, I can't believe her best friend is influencing her. You're probably not going to get in between that. Now, if it's a friend, you got a chance maybe. Family, specifically parents and siblings that are toxic, I've seen this again and again, and they know they're toxic. Most people, not all people, don't turn their back on blood. It's just built in. And so when push comes to shove, even if they know it's the bad path to take, it's family. And that's a program. And you saying anything negative about someone's parents or siblings, a lot of people, it's like speaking another language. And by the way, the minute you say something negative, you're guilty of not liking their family or, it's a booby trap. So the idea that you're going to change that, you got to let go of that. Number 3, easily influenced people aren't good long-term partners. Newsflash. What do you mean? Well, the interesting thing about that is if you got with someone that's easily influenced and you influence them to be the ideal partner for you, right? Then you think this is great. But deep down, you know when someone's naive, an easy sale at the car dealership, these people are prey for other people to influence them. Now, the other side of the spectrum, I get a lot of people, oh, my ex is stubborn and independent. They're never going to change their mind. That's the opposite spectrum. And those people are hard to deal with too. But if your partner's easily influenced, it won't just be one time that they're easily influenced. They'll be prey. Number 4, sometimes something is triggered from someone's past and it brings out a side of them you never knew. This is a big one. You've been with someone 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, and something happens. They change or they start acting really weird or out of character, and you don't know what it is, right? And an event sparked an old memory, and they can't get out of that. Number 5, how do exes get brainwashed? Well, repetition. So if the person that is there, this is a classic one for people in their 20s or in college, the girlfriend has 2 single roommates who like to party and are promiscuous, and your girlfriend lives with them. And guess what? She goes out and parties with them again and again. She hangs out with them. She lives with them. She's going to become like them. Simple as that. Comfort. Human beings like comfortable. What's comfortable is predictable. So when you're around your parents and it's been 5-10 years and they say certain things that might even be negative or manipulative, in some sick way, it's comfortable because it's what you're used to. It's what they've always acted out. And it's how they influence you. Delivery. Someone could yell at someone and the other person can yell back. Someone's dad can yell at them and they can become like a 5-year-old all over again. The tone of that voice, the memory of it. What's the payoff? What's the consequences? What's the unseen objectives of the manipulator? So the person that's manipulating your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband or wife, what's their objective? A lot of times you just blame them. Hey, they're doing wrong. Hey, they don't like me. What's their objective? Right? A lot of times it's to fill a need. For example, when I talked about that earlier about the mom, let's say your wife's mom is, 5 states over, she has a hold over your wife and it's negative and it's bad, but she lives 5 states away and it's, Christmas and some other things. But let's just say that mom 5 states over has financial trouble. Heard this one before? Big financial trouble. And she needs your wife's help. And she knows that you're not going to help her because you never really liked her. She's going to manipulate that daughter of hers to feel sorry for her and to help her out. And that her objective is to get taken care of. It's not a bad objective, but how she goes about it could be a bad way. Does that make sense? Are you with me? All right, we're going to get into the story now. This is, let's see here, 17 minutes in. This story's a bit long. Like I said, anyone that's on deck right now, if you want to put your story in, you want to make a comment, go ahead. I'll round out in about 20, 30 minutes and come back to the live stream comments. Eduardo Martinez, you're always welcome on this show. So let me get into it. And again, thanks for sending this story. And if you want to send your story in, go to rightmag.com. The link's in the comments. So it starts out, what's up, Coach Mac? What's up? My girlfriend and I have been in a really amazing relationship for the past 2.5 years. We're both in our mid-40s. Well, that's a good age to be in a good relationship. You got a lot of wisdom in your 40s. I'm with you. 2.5 years, just to tell you what I think about that. You should be in a really good place. It should be amazing. 2 years is still honeymoon. I will add that when someone does something surprising or shocking 2.5 years out, in my experience with breakups, don't be shocked. You still don't know them as well as you think you do. And something can pop up. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible so as not to inundate you with a novel, but give you as much detail without winning a Pulitzer Prize. Well, give me the details, my friend. I like a long story better than a short story that lacks details. So you paid your $25, get your money's worth. I know you hear that my story is unique, but this time it is. Possibly really unique to do a video on. My girlfriend and I are currently on a break, but she's really treating it like a breakup. Well, newsflash. I don't know what the statistics say, but being on a break is not a good thing. It tarnishes the relationship. It actually probably works best with married couples that have kids and a house. So what do I mean by that? When someone steps away on their quote-unquote break to think about things, they got to think, well, I'm also going to have to split the house. This is going to be hard on the kids. There's so many more consequences than just your relationship. You follow me? If you're in a monogamous relationship of 2 years and you take a break, get really clear on why you're taking a break. But to get to that point, says that you're at a roadblock. And a lot of times, once someone goes on a break, insecurity mounts. Because when you're in a good relationship and someone wants to take a break, you suddenly go, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? Trust gets lost. And then you have to almost take 2 steps backwards rather than 2 steps forward to get things going again. And guess what? Usually when someone takes a break, they get anxious. And they just want to get back together and get it back to that amazing part. And the other person's like, no, it's not amazing anymore. Really identify why you're on a break and what it's going to take. But in my experience, breaks are not good things. They're not. We met on Plenty of Fish and started a pretty intense relationship from day one. The sex was amazing. Well, good for you. I'm happy for you. That's a reflection of your abilities, I suppose. And the foreplay was even more amazing. The intensity carried over into our intimacy, of how we related to one another, to what worked for us. We lasted for over 2 years this way. That's incredible. Highly passionate intimacy is a great thing. It really helps bond the relationship. Some relationships like this that are so hot and heavy can go cold quick. If you go 0 to 100, you can go 100 to 0. In the first few months, I would notice that she seemed to tell me things and did the things I liked just to please me. Remember that scene from Coming to America where Prince Akeem, chosen wife, would hop on one leg? I do know Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. It was a great movie. Arsenio Hall was also in that. I know that scene. She was pretty close to that, but I overlooked it and ignored it because, hey, it felt good to have someone that into me. So what you're basically saying, and someone might not like your sense of humor, but I get it. She was all in for you. She was an accommodator. Sounds like in some ways obedient, if you're going to make that reference. And it felt really good. And you loved her for it. Now, she just liked to please me. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as it's her pleasure to do so. And some people, that's the way they convey love. Can it be a problem if that's who they are as a person with most human beings they care about? Possibly. Very possibly. But you saying that it felt good to have someone that into you, I'm with you. I get it. I've been there. I appreciate that kind of accommodation from a woman. Within the first year of our relationship, she would tell me about her illness. I'm not going to say what the illness is, and how her family treated her like a handicap. So the illness that she had affected her mobility. She doesn't have it that bad. Just a slight deformity in her right hand. Other than that, you couldn't tell. Okay. But she grew up with this, and her family treated her like a handicap. So that says something about who she is and how she was raised. Okay. She would tell me about her stepfather and how they would constantly get into FU screaming matches with one another because she wanted to do things with her life, but he would hold her back from it. Okay. He would use her mother to gang up on her and tell her she wasn't smart enough for college because of her handicap. So that's a huge statement. If that's something that she told you, this is something she probably would have to go to therapy for. The fact that she's aware of it and away from those people is a major plus. Now, with parents, when someone tells you they want you to do X, Y, Z. So, for example, you're not smart enough for college. So what's the alternative? To stay home? What's their unseen objective for her not to go to college? Would be my curious question. Why would the stepdad want her to be this way? There could be a couple reasons. First off, the stepdad could be a major loser that never went to college. And by the way, you're not a loser if you didn't go to college. That's an idiotic statement. But maybe there are people that are intimidated if their kids go to college and they didn't. That's out there, right? So what is he getting from treating her this way? Now, there's another thing, and I don't know if this is true. Sometimes when people have relatives, quote unquote, that are handicapped, the state gives them money to take care of them. The government gives them money to take care of them. I know individuals like this, and guess what? They want to keep that kid or family member that way because it legitimizes their check. Sounds bad, but I think people know what I'm talking about. So I would want to know what's his unseen objective in putting her down? Is it just his own insecurities? When we were together, I would tell her that I never saw her as a handicap, and in fact, I saw a level of intelligence, determination, and fortitude in her that was very attractive. I even nicknamed her right hand. I'm not going to say the name, would often ask her to do things for me, especially after having intimacy. Long story short, you have no idea how much she loved all of that, our passion, our intimacy, etc. There were numerous times after me reassuring her of her intelligence, how she would curl up in my lap and start to bawl, afraid I was going to leave her. So what you have here is a highly sensitive individual that has some major issues. And you're comforting, you're encouraging, you're there for her, but she's fragile. And so being that it's been good for 2.5 years, an individual like this with this kind of sensitivity, and dare I even say traumatic childhood, a lot of people think it's abuse, physical abuse, but it sounds like she's had some verbal abuse. It's very easy for someone that's this sensitive and fragile to be swayed in a different direction or to just cut things off with you because they were hurt some way or they suddenly have a different way of looking at you. I would then again make love to her, caress her in the afterglow, and in return she would repay me with showers of I love yous. So you're basically saying that when she'd be really down and out, that you guys would use intimacy to feel better. The first year of our relationship was growing closer through the adversity of both our families until we decided and made plans to finally pull the trigger on moving to North Carolina. She told me how much she loved the beach and couldn't wait to start a new life with me, just her and I, no one else. We were both excited. I think that's outstanding. If you had issues with your families and you always had a dream to live by the beach, moving somewhere new is very exciting, whether you're single or you're a couple. Great move. I'm a very big proponent of choosing your environments, and I actually live where people go on vacation, and that's what you did. So kudos on that one. When we finally got here, the beach visits were very scarce and almost non-existent. I would question her on that. We argued about it, which was our first fight. I told her how I was afraid she was just telling me what I wanted to hear and never really serious about moving here. Well, you'd have to identify why she doesn't want to go to the beach. Is it body? Is it weather? She apologized for it and explained herself, which wasn't good enough for me, but she made it up for me. So you're saying that you don't believe her. This is when you probably have to go to couples therapy. She took me to the local motorcycle shop and insisted on financing a brand new motorcycle for me because she knew how much I love bikes. So instead of working through your issues of not going to the beach, she buys you a bike. Okay. Again, she's a pleaser. She's an accommodator. This is really great for you. But you're not getting to the bottom of some of her issues. Things were going pretty well for about another year. We were back to ourselves again, and the beach visits became a tad bit more frequent, but not like she made herself out before we moved. I could tell she was trying and making an effort, so I overlooked it. So the beach thing specifically, if I had to guess, and she was quote unquote called Handicap and kind of had something wrong with her hand, it's possible that she was embarrassed to go to the beach. Now that's just me reading into what you've told me, but the fact that you're upset that she doesn't want to go to the beach or you just want her to go to the beach is a little insensitive. You probably wanted to get to the bottom of that, even though she said, oh, the beach is going to be great. There was some kind of roadblock there that she wasn't conveying completely and that you were overlooking. Not your fault. You're not a psychiatrist. You're not a coach, right? So you don't see this stuff all the time. You're just in the middle of the movie living it. But something about the beach triggered something in her that felt insecure, I would bet. We were so in love about a year and a half in, and still our honeymoon phase, that we started to make plans to get married. The logic we used was that after that amount of time, and as little as we argued because we were amazing at compromising and resolving, that it was time. Fair enough. We started to call our family members and let them know. Everyone was excited except one person, her stepdad. Dan. He called me the next day and demanded that I fill him in on our intimate details of our relationship and why I was a good fit for his daughter. Okay, first off, if you're in your mid-40s, I don't think sharing intimate details with a stepdad, a dad, or parents is required. Sorry. I wouldn't feel like I was obligated to do that. The idea of why I was a good fit? Okay. This guy raised his daughter. Now, on the other part of that, if you tell me that this guy was a dick of a father and put her down, made her feel bad about herself, I'm not sure you need to answer that question to him, and you need to talk to your girlfriend or fiance and say, look, he's asking me this. But the intimate details, way out of line. Way out of line. Way out of line. And I would just say, look, I'm not going to get into that. Our intimacy is our business. We're adults. I understand your inquiry. You have a right to ask, but I'm not going to go there. As far as me being a good fit for your daughter, I think it's best you asked her. But I immediately cringed and thought to myself, your stepdad is a douchebag. Listen, a lot of people don't like their stepdads, father-in-laws, their partners, especially women's dads. They don't like to give up their daughters. It's common. They're protective. It's common. But I kept it civil and cordial and told him that I would have to talk with her about it and didn't feel comfortable discussing this with him until I ran it by him first. Great move. Great move. I agree with you. And then all three of us could sit down and talk. Long story short, he wasn't happy, not one bit. Well, that's a huge red flag. I would tell her, look, you guys are in your mid-40s. You don't need to explain yourself to him. You don't even need his blessing. You being civil and cordial and talking to her about it, great move. Don't stoop to his level. But at the same time, you're not obligated to share intimate details about your relationship. The fact that he's worried if you're a good fit for his daughter, well, that's a reasonable question. And the only way for him to realize that himself is maybe for you guys to get dinner together and sit down and talk, not a phone conversation that's an interrogation. And at any given moment as an adult, you can decide what you answer and what you don't answer. But sticking with being civil and cordial with someone's parents that you're dating, great move. I came home from work and told her what her stepdad said to me, and her face got as red as her hair, and I never heard her cuss like a sailor like that before. She immediately got on the phone with him, screaming at the top of her lungs, cussing, chopping him down, and ended with, I love him, I'm not going to let you ruin this one, and hung up on him. So the catchphrase here is, I'm not going to let you ruin this one. So we have some history here. History repeats itself. That's not just a saying. That's the absolute truth in most cases, okay? Especially with people. People run in patterns, okay? So she's already perpetuating that this has happened before and you're not going to do it again. I'd like to know a little bit more on how he did this before. 3 days later, her mom called her and asked her to go to her. 3 days later, her mom called her and asked her to go to her niece's graduation, just her and her mom, and that I wasn't invited. Fair enough. This is when I noticed a shift in her and I started to panic. Okay, anytime you're a male in a relationship and you start to panic, it's unattractive. Women like stability, confidence. Okay, if you're panicking about her going with her mom somewhere, it's not good for you. I expressed furiously how I wasn't comfortable with this at all. I needed her to stand up for us. She guilt-tripped me with the family card. Well, I mean, I'm with you on the stepdad. The fact that her mom calls her up to visit a niece's graduation and you're furious and panicking, I don't really get it. You're with someone 2.5 years. The mom doesn't seem to be a big problem. She wants to go do this. She stood up to her stepdad in the name of your relationship already. So why are you making a deal about the mom? Right? And this is a graduation for an extended family member. The fact that she guilt tripped me with the family card. Again, you haven't stated that the mom's a problem. Long story short, we started to see the relationship therapist. He worked with us on this and other issues. Good for you. And how she needed to learn how to establish her independence, namely her stepdad. But anyone else who crossed boundaries with her, she started to, you didn't write what it was, but something must have trumped that, because she would have those I'm going in the other room to talk to my mom moments with me. Well, I don't have a problem if someone wants to talk to their parent privately. She went to her niece's graduation party with her mom, and when she came back, she was a total opposite of my girlfriend I remembered. This is when we really started to fight. So you seem to have concrete reasons why the stepdad's a jerk. He put her down. He said she was handicapped. He said she couldn't go to college. And she seems to share those sentiments that he's a jerk. And she seems to stand up for him. The mother seems like a whole nother ball of wax. And people can be influenced by their parents in their mid-40s. You're not going to change that. I have what I now understand through current education and therapy, an ambivalent attachment style. Okay, just for the record, attachment style's a theory. And so if you want to fit yourself in that box, go ahead. I prefer to deal with the problems and stories that are being conveyed. But if you feel like that helps you better, go for it. Putting a label on you that's negative, I'm not sure always helps. But if you feel like it helps, go for it. I'm still trying to figure hers out. Well, this is where the big problem is, okay? People get in these attachment theories, and then they go out and they start diagnosing other people. Oh, this person's this attachment. Says who? You? You? Right? It's the same thing if I said, it's a generalization. Human beings aren't meant to be put in boxes of, there's 4 attachment styles you can fall under. All human beings only have 4 attachment styles or 5 attachment styles. Don't try to figure hers out, okay? Look at the problems, look at the roadblocks, and deal with those directly. But it leans more towards avoidant, but still a lot of anxious. See how that works? Could be avoidant, could be anxious. Now you're getting away from stepdad's a jerk. Why is the mom manipulating her? What are the unseen objectives here? Now you're getting into labels because of the fear of abandonment she had with me. Yes, I've been continuously working on myself, whatever the fuck this is. Well, if you want to work on yourself and give yourself a label, go ahead. Finding one for her, you still don't know her inside and out that way. And by the way, you could come up with a theory of her attachment style, and you could have 10 other people do it, and they might come up with 5 other things. It's just a rabbit hole that doesn't help, in my opinion. A lot of people do it because it's very easy to read up on this stuff. And to me, it's comparable to astrology. I'm an Aquarius, so this means this, this, and this about me. I'm an ambivalent attachment style, so this means this, this, and this in me. I would like to let's just work on your story and what's going on in your life and who you are. We stayed together for the next 6 months with our relationship rapidly declining and spiraling out of control. We resorted to a lot of name calling and going for the jugular fighting style on both ends. Well, if she did, here's an interesting thing. If you heard the way she talked to her stepdad that was aggressive and jugular fighting, you're next. That's how she treats males in her life. Our therapist had a hard time getting through to her and her rampant demands for space to discover what was perpetuating the fighting between us. We eventually came to an agreement that we would take a break but continue individual therapy with our therapist while apart and work with him to repair what was damaging us. Okay, well, as in the beginning, I don't always think breaks are good. In most cases, they aren't, but it seems like you have a break with a plan and therapists involved. That actually sounds good. Side note, I've been through once already with my ex-wife where my mother hated me and worked herself to the bone to destroy our marriage. Well, that would lend to the fact that you've seen this happen before. You're familiar with it, so you feel like it's happening all over again. It's another set of circumstances. It's a different family, and your ex-wife was different and her mother was different, so it's not directly related. These are different circumstances that are slightly similar. And after my ex-wife became a malicious mother and alienated our daughters against me, wow, I told my current girlfriend how this felt very similar, and her stepdad is my ex-mother-in-law. This is what really caused a shit ton of... So you're saying the stepdad is the mother-in-law. So this isn't serving you. If you want to do a live coaching session, we need to get deeper into this. You made the stepdad out to be your ex-mother-in-law who alienated our daughters against me. This stepdad didn't do that. You're fitting them into the same box, and it's not the same box. There's some similarities, but it's not the same. Her stepdad is my ex-mother-in-law. No, they're not, and that's not going to serve you. This is what really caused a shit ton of anxiety to me and was the basis for how I fought with her. I'm sure you can see your imagination on how that influenced my fighting style. Well, yeah, what you're doing is you're pulling up an old wound, and you're doubling the pain. Long story short, she left and took only a few of her belongings while leaving the rest here. She moved in with her mom and stepdad, and this killed me. Since killed me is a very strong word, don't use that. Since being there, she has not once had an individual therapy session with our therapist and grew colder with me. The only communication she would have with me is to make a bike payment. Even when I tried to remind her about our agreement we have to each other with our therapist, she immediately cut me off and said she needs more time to figure herself out before she could commit to that, and ended the conversation. The fact that she's back living with her parents is not a good thing. That's an environment that's going to push her away from you. She's not committed to doing the therapy work, which was agreed upon. The more you tell her that she has to, the more she's not going to do it. And that's related to the fact that her dad used to tell her to do things she didn't want to do. Okay, so that's just not going to work. I started to look at YouTube videos on how to get X back. I came across Brad Browning. What a winner he is. Hey guys, Brad Browning here. How's it going? Just want to let you know, I hope you didn't buy anything there. Corey Wayne, excellent. Craig Kenneth, okay. Black Book Basics. There's some people on my live stream that really like that. The Art of Love, which is Clutch, I believe, a friend of mine. And you. I've been using all and everyone's advice mixed into one big clusterfuck of confusion. Well, if I were you, and I'm not saying to go with me or to go with Corey Wayne or The Art of Love, whatever, I would definitely pick someone that resonates with you. So this is the kind of person I would hang out with. This person gives I'm an honest person, authentic advice. I wouldn't be giving the similar advice of Brad Browning. Go with the person that resonates most with you and have a coaching session with them. Don't just watch the YouTube videos. I've been using none of it is working to get her to snap out of her spell she was under. Well, that's the problem. There's nothing, even though Brad Browning has all kinds of tricks, you're not going to snap her out of her spell with words or actions. You got to figure out what it is you really want and if that's possible, right? And the other thing is, as long as she's under her parents' roof, it's going to be pretty tough. I'll be the first to admit I was being manipulative, trying to appear like this didn't affect me, and I was moving on with my life. I'm sure she sensed that, and maybe that's why she's not snapping out of it. We'd have to talk about this in a live coaching session about the snapping out of it. Finally, our therapist suggested, after voicing his disgust and disappointment in her behavior, to ignore her communications about the bike. And finally, I saw your video about blocking her on Facebook. I just can't keep going on like this. It's been 4 months since we split up, and I'm still as hurt as ever. So I had to block her. One, because I wanted to get her attention, and two, most importantly, I didn't like who I was becoming. Manipulating her to get reaction on Facebook. Well, good move. You're in your mid-40s and you're playing like, let me put a picture where I'm really happy, but I'm not really happy to get her attention. That stuff works, and Brad Browning's on deck for that. But when it doesn't work, you feel like an ass, and you're the one that's the douchebag, right? That's teenage stuff. It works, posting stuff like that. But you didn't like who you were becoming? Come on, man. I wanted to get her attention. That's needy. And I didn't want her to see that anymore. Good move. Great move. Keep your pride, your dignity, and your fucking balls. I was hurt both ways. Hurt because she left the way she did, and hurt because I resorted to manipulative tactics. Well, you know what? I'm going to give you big time points for realizing that and being mindful and taking responsibility as an individual. Where's my woman who's been the person? Who's this person in her place? Well, first of all, the fact that you had couples therapy and you've talked about this, something happened when she went on that trip with her mom. And the more an individual like this, the more you push her for answers or to change her mind, now you become her stepdad. Does that make sense? So you're going to have to give her a lot of space and time to figure this out on her own. But unfortunately, her being under her parents' watch is not going to help. But that's not your fault. Anything that you try to push her into, sell her on, or explain to her, you become her stepdad. Does that make sense? And why is history repeating itself and her step reincarnated as a mother, my ex-mother-in-law and ex-wife? That's just something, a story you created that's not going to serve you. This isn't your ex-mother-in-law recreated. This is a different situation. There's different circumstances here. The fact that you don't like one of your in-laws and they're causing you trouble in your relationship, it's not the same thing. It's a common theme in a lot of relationships. This isn't you being, bad or anything like that. It's circumstances. I wouldn't identify with that. It's not serving you. Reincarnated, you're putting extra sauce on the thing. It's like, it's funny. I get your humor about it. But at the same time, it makes you feel like you're destined to be this way. You need to get in a mode and figure out, what are my real feelings here? Where do I want to go next? Who am I as an individual right now? And where's my fucking power in my life as an individual? I know you'll agree with me that her stepdad has her held captive. That's a strong word. I don't believe that he's held captive. They might be manipulating her. It sounds like she doesn't have anywhere else to go at this point. But you're not going to be able to talk her out of it. And he's really playing a number on her. So like my original question, how can I get her in my arms again and send an FU to the stepdad? Well. There is no short answer to get her in your arms again. The fact that she's moved out and lives with those parents and is in that space right now is probably one of the worst situations can be. Now, if I were you, instead of saying she needs therapy, instead of saying she's gone nuts, instead of saying you're not doing what you said you were with a therapist, just ask her out in this situation. She says no, say, okay, you know where you stand right now today. Stop blaming the stepdad. I understand why you're blaming the stepdad. I understand he's a jerk, but it doesn't help you. Okay? She needs to get out of that environment to see a different life. Right? I give you a lot of credit for going to a therapist and unpacking this with them. But all these, you said you watched Brad Browning, Corey Wayne, myself, Art of Love, ... Pick one. Pick one or two and share your story and get tailored advice about this situation. But before you get her back, you made a great move by stopping the Facebook games. And I would say you could probably get to a point where you just ask her out. You guys need to get back. When you go on a break for 4 months, you're not just going to get back together. You got to date again. You got to reestablish the good parts of your relationship. Right? But figuring out the stepdad, figuring out the mom, people that still are controlled by ill-intentioned parents, they're hard to be long-term partners. So, because I'll tell you this, all right, bud? Even if you got her back, this problem would probably bubble up again. You don't want to hear that? You're like, just tell me how to get her back. Unless you moved to Antarctica, it probably would come up again. And the fact that that's what people don't realize. Even though she has this weird or shitty relationship with her stepdad, that's how she interacts with men in her life that she loves, because he raised her, right? And I would like to get to the bottom of the statement she said. She called him up, confronted him, and said, "You're not going to ruin another relationship." How does she believe? So she honestly believes that he's ruining her relationships. How does that play in? And let go of this idea that the mother-in-law and this father-in-law are the same thing and it just keeps happening to you. That's a story that you just put extra sauce on. They're similar. They're not the same. They're not the same. And give yourself credit. You had 2.5 year great relationship. You're a good partner. Right? So I'd highly recommend to book a live coaching session. The $25 you spent on this could go towards the coaching. And we'll unpack that a little further. I got a few minutes if anyone's got any closing questions. Happened to me. My ex had one girlfriend who disliked me. Yeah. It's actually very common that someone's influenced by outside people, but parents are the toughest to overcome, I'd say. It's really hard. It's really hard. And I've seen this before, man, where they have to come out of themselves. This person's in their mid-40s. They have to figure out that this person's been manipulating them. They're not. And the funny thing is about therapy and stuff, you're not going to start telling her what her attachment style is and then coming up with something. She's got to figure it out on her own. Because the minute you start brow bashing and telling her what she's done wrong, what she has to do, she's changed so much, she starts looking at you like the stepdad. And how does she talk to the stepdad when he tells her what to do? You see where I'm coming from? I hope that helps you. If anyone else out there wants to share their story or do a live coaching session, go to writemac.com, send it in, and I'll get it to you as soon as possible. This is my story that you're reading. Thank you again. I've been no contact for a month. I'd like to add. Excellent. Excellent. Innovative entertainment. My ex referred to his friends as his family. What do you think of that, Mac? I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I have a lot of friends that call me bro or brother. I have a lot of friends that if they have kids, they always go, "This is Uncle Mac." I don't have a problem with that. You got to remember, and this is hard for people to realize, and this is the core principle that I've learned in talking to so many different people of different ages, different backgrounds, okay? This is the biggest thing. You think everyone sees the world the way you do. You think everyone's definition of love is the same as you. You think that personal relationships have the same morals and values as you do. Everyone has a different roadmap when it comes to friends, to love, to romantic relationships. And some of them line up really close, but it's almost like fingerprints. They're never the same. And when they're not the same, people get really upset. And they tend to think, "Oh, this person's wrong." They just look at it different. So when someone's saying, "My friends are my family," you better hope damn well that those family friends or friends family or whatever you want to call them are good ones. But human beings have this weird characteristic where a lot of them like you to be like them. And people that are impressionable, they're hard to be with long term. Because you might have imposed who you are on them and you thought it was great. But they're susceptible to that happening with someone else. Some people just never individuate. They never separate themselves from their family or of origin. Pete, good to hear from you. I agree. And the funny thing about what Pete just said, People can do it for a couple years or 5 years or 7 years, but blood's thicker than water. Family is family. You'll hear these things all the time, right? I can't throw my kid out on the streets even though he's a crackhead stealing from me every day. That's not me. That's just a statement. But you understand what I mean. And so when family, you think, oh, they just have a shitty stepdad. I'll tell you what, when you start dating, their problems become your problems. But this is the one that really people don't see. How someone treats other people in other situations is how they're going to treat you in the future. So if someone treats their friend, their close friend, or their family member a certain way, like, for example, someone says, I haven't talked to my mom in 10 years. I'm not going to debate if that was wrong or right based on your experience, based on what your mom did. But what I would say is that person's going to be more likely in a intimate relationship, a loving relationship, a relationship with someone that they're close to cut someone else off, because that's what they feel they do. Now, they might have been right in cutting off their mom, but what that domino effect of that does is now if there's a similar situation, they'll just cut someone else off because it worked before, and that's who they are. I've actually had clients like this. I'm going to break up. I'll just never talk to them again. I've done it before. Yeah, but this situation that you want to break up over, I don't think it's a big enough situation that deserves breaking up. Yeah, but I've done it before. See how that works? To answer your question previously, you asked why I had a problem with the mother asking her to go to a graduation party, because I had a strong feeling that it was her stepdad behind it. I'm with you. I understand that. But like I said, if this makes sense to you, you starting to be demonstrative or demanding or telling her what she can and cannot do, then you become the stepdad. That's the dangerous part. And she becomes the rebelling part. And she starts to put you in that box. Asking a prospective partner about their family history is important. Pete, you're speaking to the gospel there. You really are. And it's hard. When you look at it, Pete, when you're in your 20s, you never do that. And you probably even noticed in your life, yeah, she has a really bad relationship with her dad. Or, yeah, she hates her mom. You're dating a woman that hates their dad or has a bad relationship with her dad, it will affect your relationship eventually. Not directly, not in the same situation as this. It will. It will. All right, so I hope that helps you. Thanks for being active today. Pete, good to hear from you, bud. I hope you're doing really well. Innovative Air Entertainment, thank you for sharing. I'll follow up with an email for you. And brand new Skinner, Chi-Town's finest, I hope you're doing well. It's funny because I had a client with the last name Skinner recently. I thought it was you. I agree. My therapist told me the same thing. Don't be like her stepdad. That's the best way to get her back if possible. Well, there you go. I agree with your therapist. It's hard, though. You know what's hard about it, bud? You're probably going, well, that's not doing anything. That's the hard part about no contact. I'm not doing anything. You're doing the hardest thing. You're showing strength. You're showing that your life doesn't revolve around them, and you're showing her that you don't have to tell her what to do. After my ex and I had broken up, I spoke with my ex's mom to get some feedback about our relationship, and some of what I got was similar to what my ex had told me when we broke up. Well, I mean, I never suggest that you go to your ex's parents after you break up because they're going to be biased. They're probably going to tell them. It's secondhand information. People do it all the time, though. It definitely doesn't work to get them back because a lot of times, does anyone that's an adult want you talking to their parents about them behind their back? Think about that. It really rubs people the wrong way, whether it was positive or negative, whether your intentions are good or bad. So I highly recommend you don't do that. You keep your relationship with your adult partner on adult terms. My ex was very into IG too, so it's hard for me to deny that social media did its own form of brainwashing. Oh, absolutely. That could be a whole nother show, bro. That could be a whole nother show for another topic. Well, you got to look at what you value, right? So let's just say Pete values making a lot of money and taking care of his kids. That's a value system. Let's say innovative entertainment values making extremely good content for YouTube in the field of nature. And let's say that someone that uses Instagram a lot values getting attention online with hot pictures, and also values what people they never met before think, right? That being said, I do have an Instagram account for my channel, but as someone that values it really high, those values are going to seep into your relationship. And if you don't value it also, and they're taking 100 pictures a day and you can't stand it, that's not going away. Because what I said before, if you look up at my top thing, how do exes get brainwashed? Repetition. What does Instagram do? It's a lot of repetition of similar values and measures of I'm better than you, competitive happiness, right? Upgrades, et cetera, et cetera. All right, folks, I do got to run. I do have an appointment. If you want to do a live coaching session, writemac.com. If you want to send your story in, writemac.com. Take it easy. Curtains.